Welcome to another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers-in-law aren't necessarily monsters-in-law. And I'm joined by my lovely co-hosts who happen to be my daughters-in-law. I have Kelly to my left.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and I'm married to Beth's oldest son, Alex.
And Chelsea to my right.
Hi, I'm Chelsea, and I'm married to Beth's middle son, Andrew.
I'm very energetic today. I don't know why. I feel like am I shouting into the microphone? I'm like, okay, take it down a couple of notches here. But okay, ladies, I love this topic today.
Maybe that's why you're so excited.
I think that's why it is. We're going to talk about the movie industry and if it is in decline. But before we get to that, we are going to raise our glass and a toast because we do this every week. Because we know that you don't have to be a blood relative to love your relative. So cheers, ladies.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Another episode.
Cheers.
And as I said, I'm very excited about this topic because I have such fond memories of watching movies with my mom, who was a plethora of knowledge about movies. I mean, I love to stay up, and this is way back in the day when we only had 3 TV stations, and you had to stay up late on the weekends to watch, the late show. And whenever I did, and my mom was there, she would just guide me through everything, and she would know all the names of the actors, backstories of the actors, or personal lives, the costume designers. I mean, I just loved to listen to, she would just rattle off facts, and it was just always a lot of fun to watch movies with her. And then she would also go back to her childhood, which was really not quite the advent. I mean, she wasn't around for the silent movies, but
Yeah.
she grew up in the 30s and the 40s. She was born in 35. So I think one of her first memories was going off to see Wizard of Oz when she was like 4 or 5 with her aunts,
Oh, wow.
her aunts and uncles, and being terrified
Yeah.
and climbing
Oh, really?
under. I think she watched like half of the movie underneath the seat, until they could coax her out with, popcorn and, candy. So she has just such as I said, not only was she a treasure trove of knowledge, but she also had great stories. And also too, when she was growing up, it cost like a nickel or a dime to go to the movie theater, and they would stay all day.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you had to pay admission just for one movie. You could stay the whole day, and that's what they did. Especially in the summertime. She grew up in Iowa City, so Midwest. It was hot. No air conditioning in her home, but guess who had air conditioning? The movie theaters.
Movie theater.
Yeah. So she would spend the whole day there. Have a go off and spend the whole day, and then come back. So she saw just about everything, and she had very fond memories of the movies, passed that along to me. And unbeknownst to me, because when you're a teenager and living through your era in the 70s, I had no idea what a pivotal point that was for movies. I mean, The Godfather came out, and we had I can just rattle off the ones that I liked. How'd you know that? How'd you know I was going to say Love Story? That was not a blockbuster at all. But we had Jane Fonda, Barefoot in the Park, with Robert Redford, and Paul Newman, Cool Hand Luke, and those might even be in the 60s. But the 60s and 70s were just such great decades. Grease came out, at the end of
Grease.
the 70s.
Yeah.
I had the sing-along version.
So I also have very fond memories of movies, and we used to, when the boys were little, we would always go off to the movie theater. Not only would we go off to the movie theater, but we would go to Blockbuster, or our version of Blockbuster, on Friday nights. And they just had such a fun time. We would always go get pizza.
Was great.
We'd get pizza, and then we'd go off to the movie rental place, and they would just be up and down the aisles and having such a hard time deciding, what they were going to put in there.
Yeah.
How many movies did you guys rent on a Friday night?
We didn't really have a limit.
Okay.
Wow.
Each boy could pick out his own movie then?
So everybody, yes. So that was always like the big deal. So everybody got to pick out one movie that was just their choice. And then, sometimes they'd have specials, and AJ was remembering that they had like where you could get like, 5 movies for $5 or something like that.
Right.
But anyway, that was just such a fun memory. And actually, I'm single now. My late husband has been gone for 5 years, and so on my dating profile, I actually put on there that it bothers me that my grandchildren will grow up in a world that doesn't know blockbuster
I know.
movies and going off, and it was just
Blockbuster was, well, I told you in
special.
a few episodes ago that my dance studio, there was a Blockbuster, on the same shopping center, and we would go down there every Friday and pick out a movie and
It was a lot
candy,
of
and
fun.
it was the best.
But one thing that I am seeing, and now we're actually discussing it. There was just a recent podcast. Dennis Quaid was on this podcast, and he was actually talking about the decline of Hollywood or the demise of Hollywood. And recently, it was Memorial Day weekend, which historically has been the big kickoff for all the blockbuster movies. And this year in 2024, it was the lowest box office sales since 1995.
Which was crazy.
Right? Is that not? And Casper came out. And I was actually trying to, we lived in Rochester. I'll have to ask the boys. I don't remember us going off to the movie theater watching Casper, but anyway, 1995 was a low point. But so I will just kick it off with that. We definitely are seeing some signs, some cracks in the movie industry. And that really has been something that's been near and dear to America because we really have, not that other countries don't produce movies, but the big movie machine really is Hollywood.
Yeah.
And it really is America. And so to see that on the decline, it just really kind of hurts my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll just kick it off. So Kelly, I'm going to kick it over to you first. So do you think that Hollywood is an actual decline, or do you think that things will rebound? Because there are different thoughts about that.
Yeah.
And then is it a decline because of COVID? Because a lot of people are saying that is one of the big reasons.
Yeah.
Or do you think that we had cracks in the system before that, before the pandemic?
Well, personally, I feel like all of the above, because even before the pandemic, I'm struggling to remember there being any year in particular where I was like super psyched to go see movies in the theater. And I can't even remember. I mean, we had Alex and I had a very busy time because we were getting married and moving and all the things, but still in all, gosh, COVID definitely had something to do with movie theaters, and movie theaters are a lot about what is movies in America, right? Or at least it has been. But I do think that I don't think that Hollywood will rebound in the sense that it'll go back to what it once was. But I do think that there is a rebound in store in terms of shifting the focus of how we consume that kind of media, right? So streaming mostly. So during the pandemic, we saw a lot of movies. So like going back to the blockbuster era, do you remember how long it would be before a movie you saw in the theater would come out on video? It took forever.
Yeah.
I know.
It took forever. And then we get things like Netflix, and then, so it was mail order DVD and stuff like that. And it started to shore up a little bit, and it kept just getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And then the pandemic happened, and everything was just like straight to streaming. So, I think that the rebound isn't necessarily a rebound. It's just more of like a shift rather to a different type of movie making that doesn't have it. That's not solely reliant on box office sales anymore, because I don't think that that's something that's sustainable at this point in time. Do like those AMC, those huge movie theaters, like the amount of resources it takes to make one of those things be open is just like ridiculous, right? And they would make all the money on the popcorn sales and all of the concessions, right?
I'm afraid it's going by the way of the mall.
Yes, I think you're right. It exactly is.
That also makes me very, very sad.
Yeah.
And so over Memorial Day weekend, I actually went to the movies, and it was Furiosa, which is a part of the Mad Max saga.
Oh, how was that?
Well, I didn't really like it.
We can refrain from our personal feelings about the movie, but
it's not my
sad.
And I really liked. I have liked other movies in that franchise, but anyway, there were less than 20 people in our.
When did you go
theater.
on Memorial Day weekend?
Sunday
night.
Okay.
Sunday night.
See, I feel like when I hear the statistic for Memorial Day weekend, I guess it is shocking that this is the year that it is, the least amount of people going for the past 10 years. But also, I just think in my head, it's Memorial Day weekend. Maybe people are outside, they're doing things other than.
But prior,
fair, but Memorial
I
Day
guess I
weekend was
don't.
always the big.
Okay.
That was the big summer blockbuster
it
kickoff
really
weekend.
was.
Which is interesting because I wouldn't have even ever thought of that.
Well, theaters,
like I don't connect the two.
Yeah.
Well, when I was growing up and as a young mom, and and Mac and I always loved to go to movies. But Memorial Day weekend was traditionally the biggest weekend
for movies.
And theaters would be running, so you'd have so that would be when Top Gun came out. And so you'd be running 6 theaters running
the big movie,
running Top Gun, and all the theaters would be packed.
Yeah.
So it really is. I mean, you will always have your movie goers.
Yeah.
Well, we used to. So, but that's
I feel like it kind of
today.
The streaming aspect sometimes takes the magic out of it, I guess, a little bit. But
well, that's what I was going to ask you, Chelsea. So, how do you prefer to watch movies? Do you stream or do you buy movies? Do you still like to go off to the theater? I mean, is that something that you and Andrew do?
We do a little bit of, I guess all of the above. I mean, we've rented movies that have come out in theaters that I guess come up on, Amazon or however you can rent them. Or we'll buy them if it's like a movie that we know that we're really going to like. Cause at this point in time, the renting price and the buying price is like $5 difference.
Right. So do you actually buy the physical copy, like a DVD, or do you just
buy it so it's streamed on the
digital library? Okay.
But but we'll go to the movies as well. I feel like we will only go to the movie theater though if it's really a movie that either of us really want to see. Otherwise, we'll just wait for it to come out,
Yeah.
But I think to your point, it's just you can't think of a movie, recently that you're like, oh wow, that was a great movie. Honestly, the last movie was Top Gun Maverick that I can think, oh, that was a really.
And that was what, 3 years ago? Did that come out 2 years ago?
Maybe 2 years ago.
It's been 2 or 3 years. Well, and I also, so you have to ask Andrew this because his birthday is in December. And December is also another big push for movies. And you can ask him, because that was always a favorite thing of ours to do for his birthday. We would typically
go to the movies,
go to a movie, and there would be a big blockbuster. And Lord of the Rings was definitely one of the things that we saw for Andrew's birthday.
He still tries to get me to watch Lord of the Rings. We started and then I fall asleep. I fall asleep 30 minutes in, and then the problem is that then he makes me restart it. So I've seen the first 30 minutes of Lord of the Rings probably 5 times.
Well,
it's a good movie.
It was a good childhood memory.
That was like Harry Potter. I mean, my gosh, remember when Harry Potter?
Yes.
I mean, I know that was because Harry Potter was basically the same age as me and Andrew. So, I mean, I remember going to the movie theater at midnight or, whenever they would, the first, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
And you would dress up and,
I know.
it was so much fun.
I know.
I think those days
and the movie theater was packed.
I know.
I mean, not a seat.
That's what I'm saying.
Actually, I say that
it used to be you would be in a panic because it
you
was like,
get tickets.
Do you think we'll get tickets? Are we here early? And that was way before you could buy tickets online.
Yeah.
So you actually had to physically go stand in line. And I can remember doing that and having the line wrap around the movie theater.
Yeah.
But we were willing to do that because we really wanted to see a movie.
I mean, I think the shot in the dark recently with that in mind is the whole Barbie Oppenheimer thing that happened last year, right? So that was like the first time in a gazillion years, I feel like, where people were dressing up to go to the movie. And we went to go see Barbie, and we didn't think we would need to buy tickets ahead of time, and it was sold out, and we had to. So that was like the first time, and I can't even remember how long that people showed up and were excited and really into it.
That was fun to see.
Yeah.
I actually was hopeful last summer because of that, but I think it was
that,
flash,
and then it was
a flash in the pan.
Yeah, it really was.
So
for sure.
Okay, so we really can't think of movies. So Chelsea, you thought of Top Gun Maverick, and I like that movie too. But Kelly, can you think of a movie in the past 10 years that you've just like wowed you?
No.
I
Not
know,
really.
right?
I mean, I'd probably have to like kind of dig back through
Yeah.
time and see like what has come out. Cause I'm sure there's a movie that I was like, wow, that was really good and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's really coming to mind though,
I
you know,
know.
right off,
I
which
know.
is kind
Which
of a
even with
sad.
Top Gun
sad-
Maverick, I thought it was good, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I would watch it again, but I wasn't like, oh, like this is my top 10 all time
Mm-hmm.
favorite movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it would make that list,
Mhm.
you know, at least for myself.
So what about movie stars? So in the past 10 years, or we can even take it back to 25 years, do you think that we're losing our movie stars? Do they have the clout that they once did? Because I was also thinking about that too. So not only can I not think of a movie that really wowed me in the past 10 years, but who are our movie stars? I mean,
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt's in his 50s now.
I know. Yeah. I think
George Clooney.
Everyone that I think of that wowed me would be in their early 50s.
Mhm.
yeah, or mid to late.
Mhm.
I think the last period in time that we actually had movie stars that were on the covers of all the magazines and everybody really cared about them was when like Clooney, Matt Damon, when they were all young enough and in,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
really kind of there. Julia Roberts,
Right.
Kate
Sandra
Hudson.
Bullock.
Yeah.
Like,
Sandra Bullock.
Yes.
you know, I think that and I've often really tried to think about this and I don't know the answer and I'm not sure if I am even prepared to like have the argument about it, but like I do feel like the new crop of like Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, like all of the new younger folks, like
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm curious about is like as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
do you just sort of lose sight of what's coming up from the younger generations and so you're just kind of not quite in tune because it's not the same thing as what you're used to, it's not the same thing that you're interested in, they're not making the same kind of movies that you're interested in, so you just kind of lose sight or
Maybe.
lose
I mean, that is a good
touch with
point.
like so I've wondered that about myself, like
Mm-hmm.
they're not make those new Hollywood folks are not really, the younger ones are not making movies that I'm really that interested in seeing, so am I just missing the forest through the trees, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
they might be the new, you know, celebrities, but I don't think movie stars as we've known them in the past will ever be the same
Right.
as they
Well,
were then.
I don't even know if it's that, but we just recently watched I can't think of what the movie is, but it has Zendaya in it. It's
Is it
the
a
tennis movie.
Dune? Oh,
No,
tennis
it's
movie.
I can't think of
What
what
about the Serena Williams?
No, it's not the Serena Williams, but it's a tennis movie and I can't think of the name of it. It just came out. Challenger. Yes. So we just watched Challenger and it was good, but also the ending was really weird.
Uh-huh.
Which I'm not obviously going to give away how it ended, but it was just kind of one of those endings, this is what I found with movies that I've recently watched, is that the movie itself will be, you know, not amazing. Like I'm not like, oh, this is the next Pretty Woman or this is the next, you know, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days or one of those. But I'm like, this is a good movie. And then it ends and both me and Andrew look at each other and we go, huh.
Really?
That was weird.
Yeah.
Really?
You know, like, and it's not just me thinking that, like Andrew thinks it too. So I'm like, clearly other people are thinking that this is ending weird,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do. So, you know, to your point, Kelly, about younger actors, because I do know that my mom's generation that grew up with Audrey Hepburn and Grace Kelly and Gary Cooper, they were probably thinking that maybe the newer crop was not quite up to snuff.
Yeah, the
I'm
Robert
sure-
Redfords.
right?
Yeah.
But I will say, I don't know, Robert Redford. I mean, I think after a certain point in time,
Yeah.
proved his worth.
Sure.
Proved his acting skills. So then even the older generation would come along and say, you know what,
That's a really good
that was yes, he's a really good actor. He's that was a really good movie.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's always that changing of a guard, and I do think that there's the older generation is going to be thinking, oh no, it's
Sure.
it's not quite what I grew up with. But I do think that there is a shift, because I don't even think that, because okay, so say 30 years ago, if Dustin Hoffman was in a movie, he could carry that movie. I mean, people would go see that movie just because Dustin Hoffman was starring in it. And I can't think of any young star or a star 40 or younger that could do that. I mean, I think that Julia Roberts, but she's 50 now.
Well,
is she 50
She's
now?
more
So
than 50.
I just thought of
She's a
a
little older than me.
Okay.
I just thought of a movie that was actually, I did not see this in theaters, but I don't even know. I guess maybe it was in theaters. I'm not really sure if it was. Anne Hathaway's in it, and it's new. The Idea of You.
Oh, that's right.
That was a
I
book.
did see that.
And me and Andrew watched it, and it was recent, and it was actually really good.
Was it good?
Yeah.
It was good, and
But it was made for TV. It's not. Is it in the theaters?
I don't think it was. I think it was made for
That's
TV.
right. So there again, it's prestige television.
But also, so there is a younger, I'm trying to think of the male actor that was in it that played, you know what I mean, her counterpart that she was basically in a relationship with. And he's younger.
Okay.
But then again, you have Anne Hathaway. So I mean, that's why you're watching it, right? Because you're like, oh, this is Anne Hathaway, you know, like Princess Diaries, Devil Wears Prada.
Right.
I mean,
so she's in her 30s now. So okay, so
no, she's
is she older.
she's like late 40s, I want to say.
No,
No, she's not late 40s.
She's not in her 30s. No, she's early. She's 41.
I'm gonna
I
lock
want to
that
say
up.
she's 41.
How old is Anne Hathaway?
I think she's 41.
Really?
Yeah, she's not in her 30s.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Okay. Hello. Wow.
So she's not quite as old as like Julia Roberts and Kate Hudson and their generation, but
she burst on the scene at a young age because of Princess Diaries.
Yes.
So she and she was actually one of those actresses that did transition from being a teen star into being a just a regular star. Wow. Okay. So I think the cutoff is 40 because I was thinking, okay, Anne Hathaway, definitely. She can carry a movie, I think.
Well, I just also feel like there are just fewer and fewer of these phenomenal actors and actresses that actually get to a point at which we're going to a movie to see just them. Whether or not they're the one carrying it doesn't necessarily matter so much as like, I'm going to go see the so-and-so's new movie, you know, whatever. It just feels, and I might be totally wrong about this, but it just really does feel like in this moment in time, there are way fewer of 20 to 30-year-old.
I definitely
mid 30-year-old actor that is, you know,
because I can't
that's doing it.
I can't think of that.
Yeah.
Which maybe to your point, it is just that we're getting older and that we just don't relate to whoever is
up and coming.
Well, you're 34. I mean, do you
I'm
really
34, but
you are I mean, you're not,
but I feel like I relate, but I am 34, but I relate more to Anne Hathaway and people that are older, I think, because I grew up watching them when I was younger. And to me, that was like, oh, wow. You know, like when Devil Wears Prada, you know, Princess Diaries, she was older than me, but I still grew up watching that movie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And perhaps like there's another phenomenon too about the types of movies that are being made. Right. So we can,
let's touch on
we can
that.
talk about the Marvel, like the superhero movie franchises. Like,
I'm glad you brought that up. And actually, so we do have an article, The Life and Death of Hollywood. So this is in Harper's Bazaar. And this was actually written by a writer. And she was, and the name of the article is The Life and Death of Hollywood, and Film and Television Writers Face an Existential Threat. And it is a very good article because she really does touch on how hard it actually is to be a writer and not having the backing of your producers. And, you know, you don't really have anybody in your court to really be, you know, pushing something along. And I do know that it is very challenging. And actually on our last New and Noteworthy, or one of the New and Noteworthies, I talked about this mini-series about how hard it was even to get The Godfather made. I mean, there's a lot of ins and outs of getting a movie, you know, from the written page, then, you know, into the theaters. And there's a lot, you know, as in any industry, there's politics and there's all sorts of things that go on. But I do think that we are having this moment, and now with the advent of AI, and that's one of the things that's why we had the strikes in Hollywood, is because the writers were like, hey, our jobs are important. We're important. You know, thoughts are important. We don't want it to be turned over to AI. So I did think that was really very interesting. But let's shift it back. So you brought up a very important topic. So let's explore that a little bit more.
Right. So as the film industry is experiencing a decline in terms of bringing people to the theaters and box office sales and things like that, right? You have the impetus to make films that will draw people to come out and spend money and buy a ticket and buy popcorn and do all the things, right?
And you don't really need a skilled screenwriter to make
no, you don't.
movies,
You just
right?
need a crack group of animators basically, because a lot of these films rely on CG and a lot of that. Excuse me, but you know, I think that the decline is just going to be, instead of there being some kind of rebound that looks anything like what you might expect, a boomerang coming back or a slingshot or something, is the idea that everything is declining to a point where they just need to make money makers. Like they're like, sorry, we're not doing the cool independent types thing. You know, we're not doing something interesting and thought provoking that's going to require acting talents from good actors, blah, 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 good writing, dialogue, all of it. Forget it.
Yeah.
We just need to make money makers. And so where does that
the Marvel movies?
So then you
That's
look
a
at
huge franchise.
You look at why is it Marvel and even the DC movies, like there's plenty of people that like those too. So that whole genre of filmmaking, you see it kind of like just become regurgitated, whether it's in those worlds or other movies that are trying to be these action, super action movies, just because they need to put butts in seats, So,
but guess what? Those movies are not even drawing people into the theaters anymore.
Fair enough.
Either.
But, you wonder, like, these executives at these movie companies, like they're trying to figure out, like, what can we do to, like, sell? What can we do to sell? What can we do that's going to make money, So then they find these blockbuster style things, that they want to keep pushing out there.
Right. Well, and also too, we had a slew of prequels and sequels. So
there's so many ways they can go with it. They're just bleeding it dry.
And that's, so I do think that really impacts writers and creativity. And because they're not focused on telling a good story anymore.
Right.
And I will point back to the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. Those were good stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were told, and then you have to tell it well, and you have to have a skilled director. You have to have skilled actors. But there again, the Marvel movies or the sequels and the prequels, and that's, with Star Wars and listen.
And all the spin-offs. I mean, it just...
And I remember when the original Star Wars came out, and we all were like, I mean, I wasn't as gaga as my younger brother was, but I mean, I definitely was on the bandwagon because we'd never seen anything like that. But there again, that was creative.
Yeah.
We hadn't seen anything like that. So it was a novelty. And now we've just kind of beaten that horse.
Well, it's the creativeness. And I feel like a lot of, like, even going into like the rom-com, section
we don't have
of
those
movies
anymore either.
It's like, I feel like all of the old school rom-coms felt very cozy, like it felt like being in like the season of fall or something when you're watching it. But now they just seem so cheesy.
Do they even make rom-coms anymore? Because they certainly don't make comedies anymore.
Yeah, I don't even...
I know.
Well, I can think of the last rom-com that I saw was the one with Sydney Sweeney in it. And this, I think, was in theaters. And I cannot, again, for the life of me, think of what the movie's called. But that one was a rom-com. And it was okay, but it was kind of cheesy, But like cheesy, I mean, normally, yes, rom-coms are going to be cheesy, but...
But if they have heart...
Yeah,
they have. I mean, Meg Ryan was the queen of rom-coms way back in the day.
Yeah,
and she had Tom Hanks. I mean, they were very accomplished actors, and so they also like one of my all-time favorite movies is You've Got Mail.
I love that movie.
But the director was Nora Ephron.
Yeah,
who was a fantastic director.
Yeah,
she was also a writer, but she was also a fantastic director. So there again, bringing skilled people together, you can create beautiful music from even a rom-com.
Yeah.
So, and it had heart.
Yeah.
It had heart. And so it wasn't cheesy. It was, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I will always love that movie forever and a day. So, okay. So since I did touch on directors very briefly, so we kind of are having a struggle finding movies that we liked in the past 10 years and actors and actresses or that are actually movie stars and can carry a movie. So what about directors? Because I think that sometimes they are the unsung hero because they're the ones that are putting the story into play,
right,
and helping their actors and actresses to be great.
Yeah.
So can you think of any directors under the age of 40 that are?
No, I can't. Actually, I can answer that straight away. I don't know of any. I'm not a movie scholar by any means. So like, I'm sure that there's plenty out there, but I don't know of any of them. All of my favorite directors are, probably 50 and above, I'd say.
I know. So is that a dying art too?
Maybe, and I do think that a lot of this kind of starts to track back towards this direction that we've been going in with consuming visual media at home, whether it's television or movies, streaming something or rent or, playing the DVD on your machine at home has become such the way of things that I just don't think that
I think too.
I don't think that it's there anymore.
We've shifted more to like TV shows or series than we have with movies.
Right. The prestige TV. And actually, that's probably a good topic for us to touch on.
Yes, we will.
We will. Message from Mom.
Oh, for sure.
We'll definitely be talking more about that next time. But
because honestly, when I want a good movie or a good story, I head to HBO TV. Or I head to Netflix or I head to Hulu.
One thing that I'm noticing,
I'm finding, and we had, I think I can't remember the first wave of prestige TV, but I do know like Mad Men was, part of it. Maybe it was the first run, second run, Breaking Bad. All of these acclaimed shows that really great, but they're again great writers, great directors, great actors.
They paved the way for like where
Sopranos.
Things shifted to. But I going back to the idea that these corporate, movie making executives need to, only invest in something that they think will sell a lot. A lot of these more, niche or like people with good stories trying to shop their stories around, the directors trying to shop their movies around. They're ending up, I think, having to go to television to actually get someone to back them to do it because these studios are not going to back them. They're not going to distribute it. They're not going to put up the money that it takes to put something out that's interesting. They want to have a surefire moneymaker.
Well, I also think too, and I think this kind of dives a little bit into the reason why maybe people veered more towards a series rather than a movie. And maybe even TikTok a little bit is that everyone's attention span seems to be a lot shorter. And I feel like some of the movies that they're putting out, they'll be like 3 hours long. It's such a long movie. I'm like an hour and a half, 2 hours at most. Is a good length. And I feel like that's the key with a lot of the movies like You've Got Mail, When Harry Met Sally, Pretty Woman, all of those movies.
90 minutes.
Like it was a good length of time.
Nice
story.
Tight story, a lean movie. It's not bloated. It's not,
Well, and that's to the point too. It's like, who wants to go to a movie theater and sit for 3 hours? Like maybe if, like when your mom went, you're going to see multiple movies. That's different than literally going to
3 hours. I want to see 2 movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just one.
Because I don't.
Honestly, the movies that I have gone to the theater for, there have been a couple where I was just like,
oh, it's so long.
I wanted to just,
I'm sorry, to fall asleep.
Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, and I think it was The Flower of the Moon. What was that? Oh dear Lord! I
never hear the end of how much.
I know you will never hear the end because I was like, if I had to hear Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm sorry. I actually like Leonardo.
Although to the reverse
Titanic
of that,
is one of my favorite movies, but
you went to Titanic 5 million times apparently.
I did.
And that was actually a really long movie.
It was a good story though.
It was a good story.
And I even knew the ending, and I went back many times.
Again and again.
That's it. Titanic is honestly the only movie that should be 3 hours long.
I know.
Did you guys know that the exact running 2 hours and 47 minutes, I think is what it is. The exact running time of that movie is the exact amount of time it took that ship to sink.
Oh,
really?
James Cameron is a sinister man.
Wow. Interesting.
I knew that. That was so cool.
Like including credits?
James
Including or not including credits?
I don't know about the credits, but I will say though that I do owe that little piece of trivia, and it might be half-ass internet research to the rewatchables.
That's funny.
I know.
Yeah,
I love that podcast.
It's such a good podcast, especially if you're really into movies and things. But and that was that movie being that long at that time was kind of rare.
That was rare.
Like
yeah,
that was like
it was.
There were not movies that long at that point.
But it was a good storyline.
It was a good storyline.
Yeah.
You could not tell that story
No, you couldn't have.
in under 2 hours and 47 minutes. No. So anyway, but yes, movies are definitely, yes, I don't get the whole 3-hour movie because that seems to be kind of the norm.
Yeah, I don't know why either.
I don't either. I really don't. So so
movies need to get shorter, everyone.
They really do. So okay, I did want to just ask for our last question. What type of movie? I mean, we've talked about some movies we don't want to see anymore, like the Marvel franchise and the prequels and the sequels. So what type of movie would you like to see make a comeback?
Comedy.
I'd say a rom-com.
Right?
Like just a good or comedy.
Right?
I mean,
I know it's so hard to put
like what about like a good like The Hangover? My gosh, I feel like that was
Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids.
That was the last.
I love that movie.
I mean,
I love that movie. When did that come out?
When did that come out?
We have our producer on his phone checking that out.
So 2011. Yeah.
I think Hangover was what, 2008?
Maybe before that, yeah.
It was before that because I always felt that Bridesmaids was, 2009.
Okay.
Bridesmaids was
or before
a nice little counterpart to completely different.
Bridesmaids was a great movie.
It was such a great movie.
Well, really you know what? Yeah,
comedy.
It really was.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, she's done a couple of good. Kristen Wiig.
They were so,
I love
them. She's done she did at least one other comedy that I actually really liked. But as far as comedy goes, like it's just so dead. I feel like the wokeness and the kind of PC-ness and the sort of
we can be funny anymore.
Cancel culture of our time right now is really limiting our comedy movie.
For sure. I would agree. So comedy, rom-com, I completely agree with both of those. But I also, and I'll bring this in my new Noteworthy too, but I think a beautiful drama, I miss those.
Yeah.
I miss a good, just a dramatic role or a more serious role where you're actually telling a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it can tie itself up in any which way. Good, bad, or the other. But I mean, a good story is just that. And I really miss a good dramatic movie.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot. We actually have another topic for a future podcast, and that's the advent of prestige TV, because I think that's where we head.
Yep.
We head to our TV. Okay, well, we are going to take a short break and we will be back with New and Noteworthy. All right, we are back with our segment New and Noteworthy, where we love to share if we've been shopping at a particular place or we've purchased something that's noteworthy, or maybe it's something that we've read, maybe it's something that we've watched. We just discussed movies, so we're not necessarily going off to movies, but we are watching some maybe movies on TV. But Kelly, I will kick it off to you. So what do you have this week for New or Noteworthy?
Okay, well, you might actually really like this show if you haven't watched it yet, because I know how much you like a drama. So on Netflix, there is a new interpretation of Well, it was originally a novel, but The Talented Mr. Ripley was a movie that came out.
Yes. Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So there's a new interpretation of it. It's
Oh,
it's a series on Netflix, and it
Is it
stars.
good?
It's so good. I wouldn't
Okay.
be talking about it if it wasn't good. Let me tell you. It stars. So Andrew
Okay.
Scott plays Ripley, and so here I'll preface this by saying The Talented Mr. Ripley is one of my top 20 movies.
Really?
I really love that
It's a
movie.
good movie.
It's so well done, beautifully acted. I love all the people in
Yeah.
all the right parts. Matt Damon is sinister and great. Gwyneth Paltrow, beautiful. It takes place in Italy, so the scenery is gorgeous, and it's a time period that I love.
Yeah.
So it's in the 60s, 50s, 60s.
I just recently watched that.
Yeah, it's a
I
great.
enjoyed it.
Did you like it?
I did like it.
It's a
Yeah.
really great movie. So this series is a reinterpretation. It follows it, so you'll recognize it, right? If you've seen the movie or read the book. Andrew Scott plays Tom Ripley, and I was like, I was hesitant to watch it because I loved the first movie so much that I was afraid that this might just kind of not work for me because I'm so used to seeing those actors play those characters. I was so wrong because I'm telling you that Andrew Scott is the better version of Tom Ripley. Like Matt Damon is great, but he can go back. Yeah, because Andrew Scott,
to know.
I like that.
Andrew Scott is a way more menacing Ripley character. Really, you're rooting for him, but you also don't want him to like. He's very compelling, very good. Dakota Fanning plays the Marge character who Gwyneth Paltrow played in the movie. She is excellent in it.
Okay.
The whole show is shot in black and white.
Okay.
Which is another thing that made me think. It made me give me pause at first, just because I know that
That's
the
why I've
locations,
done pause. Yeah.
the locations are so beautiful. You think, oh gosh, Italy in black and white. Do I really want to go there with this? But then you see it, and it's almost like it almost makes the set deck and the locations even more beautiful because you're imposing what you know to be those colors onto the black and white. Like I don't know how to describe it necessarily, but it is gorgeously filmed, beautifully acted, a wonderful, wonderful adaptation of that story.
Okay. Good to know.
So it's a mini. Do they have like more than one season on deck, or is it just one?
It's just one season. It wraps the whole thing up. It's a limited series.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like that.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Because I did not know that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did not know that was.
It's very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chelsea, what do you have?
I have, this one's new. It's Under the Bridge. It's on Hulu. It's based on a true story. I mean, I think that they've obviously changed some elements of it, but I haven't quite finished it yet. I would say I have like maybe 2 or 3 more episodes left. But it's been good. It's kind of like a murder mystery type story where it involves like young girls and I don't know how to kind of describe it even more without giving it away, but it kind of goes into there's a group of girls that live in a home and they grew up in kind of different environments, and there's this one girl that kind of wants to fit in a little bit more, and culturally I think her family, they're Indian, and she just doesn't feel like she fits in at school. And so she kind of gets involved with this group of girls that are in this home, and it becomes kind of a bad situation. So it's been interesting. I mean, it is a little bit of a sad story, this murder situation. I mean, especially since you know it to be based upon true events. Andrew stopped watching it with me because he said it was too sad.
Oh,
but
that's interesting.
I know. Yeah, it is a little sad, but I do like a little bit of darkness to some shows. So, I mean, I'm still going to finish it and watch it. And it's been interesting.
So it's the bridge.